Hello, okay, for those of you returning to the channel, welcome back, and for those of you that are new here, that have just stumbled upon this video, then thank you for joining me, and welcome to my spoiler-free review of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I've been really looking forward to this. I was lucky enough to catch it at an advance showing last Monday, and I'm very grateful, I'm very happy to have caught it on the big screen. I really didn't want to watch this for the first time on TV or streaming, and I've grown up with many different versions, different adaptations of this classic horror story by Mary Shelley over the years. The one adaptation that always comes to my mind first, because it was just one of those experiences that I actually quite liked. I grew up watching this particular movie as a kid, and it's Kenneth Branagh's Frankenstein. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that movie, but I'm actually quite fond of it. It's not perfect, it's got flaws, but I quite liked what Kenneth Branagh was attempting there with his adaptation of this story. But I've never read the novel. Like, I've got the novel here, and I've just never got around to reading it, so I'm not going to be able to compare this adaptation, or any adaptation really, to that original story. But yeah, I'm just a big fan of Del Toro, and so, you know, I've been really looking forward to seeing what he does here with his version, his vision when it comes to this story. So, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein is 2 hours and 30 minutes, and I didn't feel a minute of it. It's very breezy. I think the pace, it has this kind of very sort of high energy when it comes to the pace. Some people have felt like it's a bit slow, but for me, I felt it was very consistent with its pace, and that 2.5 hours, that 2 hours and 30 minutes just flies by. And its narrative, the way in which that narrative is structured with that pace, it just sort of sweeps you up within this sort of kind of very gothic, whimsical, tragic world of Victor Frankenstein and his creation. And it's an incredibly immersive experience as a result. It works for what I feel like Del Toro was aiming for with this, but it kind of plays into a negative or an issue that I personally had with the overall experience. At the same time, it's still very effective. It's an experience that's very effective at kind of really immersing you into this very tragic story. In fact, for me, this entire experience felt like, its approach into telling the story, it had this kind of dreamlike, whimsical approach to how the story is told, to how the story is structured, with how its narrative is structured. It has this kind of very dreamlike, whimsical approach to it, which kind of just swallows you up within the drama of these characters and their stories and their journey. And as a result, you know, what we get is an experience that is full of striking visuals and emotional nuance. And that's probably the best way I can describe it. You know, and this is what I mean by Del Toro. Even though there's an aspect to this that doesn't work for me, at the same time it's still pretty effective at sort of evoking those emotions that this story is designed to. Well, it did for me anyway, personally. Like, it is a tragic story, and you can feel that. You know, I felt sympathetic towards the creature. It is a movie that touches you emotionally. You feel the sadness, you feel the tragicness of these characters and what it is that they're going through. At the same time, this approach to telling the story didn't completely work for me, because I felt like there are moments with certain characters and sort of their relationships with one another and sort of character development. I just don't feel like there are certain moments and characters that really get time to breathe when it comes to the drama between each of these characters, whatever it be, between Victor Frankenstein and Elizabeth, or Victor Frankenstein and his father. Like, it's very effective at immersing you into this story and sort of really getting, and really sort of sweeping you up within sort of that kind of the emotional aspect of its story. But I just felt myself really wanting more when it came to these characters and their relationships with one another, and when these characters are introduced for the first time, I just felt like they weren't really given enough time to fully breathe and come to life. At the same time, it's effective at what I feel like Del Toro is aiming for you. And it's as a result of certain moments and characters not really having enough time to breathe that kind of really sort of takes away perhaps that emotional impact or an emotional punch to its story. Even though it still is an emotional journey, this is still an emotional experience where you can feel the pain, you can feel the sadness. At the same time, overall, especially when it comes to certain characters and their relationships, it's just kind of lacking the emotional depth as a result of that approach into telling this story. And not everyone's going to agree with me on this, I know that, and this is just my own personal opinion, but it is just one of those experiences where I just wished it had sort of slowed down a little bit more, and we had just gone a little bit more time with certain characters to sort of really kind of witness these relationships with one another unfold. Jacob Elordi as the monster is superb here. His performance was just mesmerising. I loved how he brought this character to life. He does a beautiful job at sort of really capturing and conveying the tragic nature of this character through how he moves, through these kind of very nuanced expressions, how he would look at certain things or certain characters. And he is just captivating to watch here, just mesmerising to watch in how he brings this character, this creature to life, and to just see how that creature evolves and just how Elordi captures that evolution through the performance. He was fantastic here, and it's his performance that kind of really heightens and elevates that sort of the emotional aspect of its story. Oscar Isaacs is also great as Frankenstein. My problem with this particular character was, when it comes to Victor Frankenstein, is I feel like he's one of the characters within this experience that suffers with how sort of the movie, with that kind of very breezy pace to the movie. I do feel like that we are missing moments and certain key moments when it comes to this character to sort of really get across that kind of the evolution or the transition of this character from beginning to end, with this character's journey, to sort of really get that kind of emotional impact of what this character is going through mentally and emotionally. Like it's there, you could still sense it, but it's just, it was Victor Frankenstein, it was his character that I felt like was just perhaps lacking that kind of the emotional depth that I really wanted. But that was, for me personally, as a result of sort of the approach into sort of telling the story, due to that kind of the high energy pace that I felt like it had. Like I said, I felt like this movie and how it sort of goes, how it skims through the story, it was quite breezy. And I know not everyone's going to agree with me on that, especially from what I've been reading, but I felt like it was very breezy, and I just felt like his character suffered as a result of that. At the same time, due to Oscar Isaac's performance, it still works for evoking those emotions that the story is designed to, that this particular character and his journey is designed to. And I absolutely admired the use of practical effects within this movie. Of course we're going to get practical effects, it's Del Toro, but it's the practical effects in this movie and how they are utilised. It's just beautifully done. They are effects that kind of really heighten and elevate those moments of gothic, grotesque horror. And there are certain scenes, there are certain moments of horror, whether it be a death, they are very gruesome, and obviously they're more effective due to them using practical effects, but also they are very effective due to how these moments are shot and edited. Like, there are moments in this movie when it comes to the horror and to the kind of very grotesque, graphic deaths within this film. But they are meticulously shot and edited in a way where they're also sort of allowing your imagination to also kick in at the same time and fill in the blanks. Like, you still see a lot, but just due to the way these moments are shot, it's, and due to sort of how long they linger on certain moments, it just allows, at the same time, for your imagination to sort of play a part within those moments. And I just found that to be incredibly clever. Like, I really liked that aspect to the movie. And yeah, there are moments in this film that made me wince. And it's like, oh, but that's because of the practical effects and just how they are utilised within this film, along with how those scenes are, just beautifully, meticulously edited and shot. There's this one moment with Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein and this animatronic, and I was grinning like a Cheshire cat. And just the way in which this scene just sort of played out with this animatronic, and I'm like, oh yes. Alexandre Desplat scores the movie, and I think he does a wonderful job at capturing and conveying sort of the tenderness, the tragicness and horror of its story. It's a very haunting and unnerving score, but it's one that kind of just sort of really helps elevate and heighten sort of the emotional current of this story. It's a score that kind of just swallows you up sort of within the emotional journey in which these characters are on. It's a beautiful score. There are pieces of the score actually in moments and in parts that kind of really reminded me of an Elliot Goldenfil score. I'm a massive fan of Elliot Goldenfil. He's one of my favourite composers, and there are certain moments that just reminded me of Elliot Goldenfil. Christoph Waltz and Mia Goth are also superb here. I loved what they were doing with their characters. They're great performances, but along with Oscar Isaac, I felt like that these were characters that suffered as a result of that kind of the breeziness, really, and the swiftness, and sort of how the story sort of plays out. It suffers as a result. It was just an experience that felt like I needed more. I needed more moments with these characters, so their relationships with one another and sort of their stories had sort of really enough time to fully come to life and breathe. At the same time, this was still an effective experience because I remained consumed by the tragedy and horror of its story, of its characters' journeys, of its themes in which they're exploring. It's an experience that is tinged with sadness. We get this beautiful, haunting final shot in the movie that just sort of burnt itself in my memory. It's a shot that remained with me long after the credits roll. For me, Del Toro achieves so much with his adaptation here of Frankenstein. He takes a very familiar and tragic story and it just feels fresh. It's very much a Del Toro film, but I've also never felt so emotionally swallowed up within its story or sympathetic towards the monster, and a lot of that is because of how this creature, how the character is brought to life by Jacob Elordi. But it's an experience or journey that is also heightened by how Del Toro brings this story to life. It's an experience that lays bare the character's faults and flaws, that leaves you pondering on the morals of our character's motivations. It's a film that to a degree still manages to challenge you emotionally, even with the minor issues that I did have with it. And it's an experience that once the credits roll, it's like, yeah, it stays with you. It's there. You know, there are moments within this movie from a visual perspective that just sort of are burnt into my memory. You know, and there are some gorgeous visuals and shots in this movie. So from a visual perspective, again, it's very Del Toro, but also very effective through its visuals in sort of really bringing this horrifying tragedy to life. So yeah, I really liked Del Toro's Frankenstein. I highly recommend it. If you get an opportunity to catch it on the big screen, I think there are limited showings in the cinema, but if you do get an opportunity to, please, I highly recommend you check it out on the biggest screen possible. So yeah, that's enough of rambling from me. They are my thoughts on Frankenstein, and I will be giving Frankenstein So yeah, they are my thoughts on Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. The showing that I caught was actually part of the London Film Festival. It's been showing at a lot of festivals. And so yeah, I do highly recommend, if you can, catch it at on the biggest screen possible. But yeah, they are my thoughts on Del Toro's Frankenstein. Have any of you guys caught it at the festivals? Please let me know below. Do you agree, disagree with anything I've said? Let me know below and let's get a discussion going. Are you looking forward to the movie as a result of hearing me ramble on about it? Let me know. And if you want to watch future movie reviews from just some random Welsh geek rambling on, then please hit the subscribe button. It will mean an awful lot to me. I do want to apologise with this review. I may have come across perhaps a little croaky or a little banged up. I am full of the lurgy at the moment and I'm lacking a lot of energy, and I'm not sure if that's going to come across with this review, so just apologies there. And I just want to say another massive thank you to everyone that is supporting the channel. Whether it be liking, commenting, subscribing, it means the absolute world to me, and it will always overwhelm me that so many of you do want to follow just some random Welsh geek rambling on about film and TV, but it does mean the world to me. And so yeah, that's it from me for now, guys. Thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'll be catching you guys soon.